So we were about to record Code Blue in Studio 301 in Sydney, which is where we recorded Man of Colours. It's about to work with David Lord, who did so wonderfully well, a producer of Man of Colours, and we had him booked, had the studio booked, and we were 3 weeks out. And David Lord's manager called me from England and said, "I've got some bad news. I'm terribly sorry. David Lord won't be coming over to Australia to produce the Code Blue for you." Because he's currently in Bristol prison. Now, I'm not going to give you the gory details of why he ended up in Bristol prison, but it's not good. And I went into a complete and utter panic because we had the studio booked, we had no producer, and where I live, it's on the northern beaches of Sydney. There's a surf club about 150 metres down the road, and my sax player, keyboard player, was coming up stay the weekend with me. And he got up about 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and he said to me, "I've been chatting to the guys at BMI at Studio 301, the maintenance guys at the studio where we were going to record. And Bowie's been in there, and he's recording with the second Tin Machine album. That was a side project of David Bowie's. And they said to me, he's going to be playing at your surf club this evening." And I went, "Yeah, right, pull the other one, Simon. I mean, yes, sure." And he said, no, I'm just going to go for a walk down the street. And there was a phone booth outside the surf club. 10 minutes, walk down the street. My phone rings, and Simon Lloyd is on the other end of the phone and said, "David Bowie has just arrived." And I went, "What the hell?" And so I walked to my local surf club. Of course, we'd toured with Bowie, so I knew him to say hello to. And we watched Tin Machine play, who was some of my favourite players either. So the Tony Hunt Sales, bass player and drummer who had played on Lust for Life, Iggy Pop's album. We played a heap of those songs, in the early days, whatever, was in the band. Reeves Gabriels from Dinosaur Jr. was playing guitar. There were about 70 people in this room, and David Bowie, and he played a full set. And then I went upstairs to the kind of dressing room area, had a drink with him, and I walked home to my house. So when this happened about David Lord being in Bristol prison, when I freaked out, I thought, this is a fairly desperate situation here, and it calls for desperate measures. So I rang Studio 301 the next day, and I left a message. "Could you please leave this message for David Bowie to please call Iva at home?" Left my number, thinking there is no way in the world that David Bowie is going to answer this message. And I went out, and in those days you had an answering machine with tiny little cassette tapes in them. And I came home, and the red light on it was flashing as a message, and I pushed play, and this voice said, "Hello, Iva, it's Dave here. Give me a call. I'm in the studio," and whatever. And very sadly, I left that tape in the machine, and it reset and wiped with the next message that came in, David Bowie, from my answering machine. But anyway, we did catch up on the phone, and I've got to say it was an incredibly long conversation. It was well over an hour, and we went through the list of all the producers he'd worked with, all the kind of current favourites at the time in 1990. And we seriously talked about producers. So with David Bowie, I mean, all the things in the world. Spent an hour and a half talking to David Bowie about, which producer should I be using.